In fiscal year 2023-2024, SEARCA intensified its efforts to help agricultural families in Southeast Asia build sustainable and resilient livelihoods. Our core programs are the engines driving this mission. Aligned with the UN SDGs, our efforts target 7 crucial areas to pave the way toward 5 transformative outcomes. We focused on providing scholarships and training to cultivate leaders in agricultural and rural development, or ARD, with combined funding from SEARCA and partner institutions. Furthermore, we facilitated institutional development in higher education, most notably through 2 major capacity-building projects, of which Level Up HEIFR had many tangible outcomes. SEARCA also fostered internationalization of higher education by participating in multi-country networks. SEARCA also leveraged innovative programs to spark youth interest and participation in agriculture. With a focus on research that shapes policy, we delved into critical areas like agricultural management systems, sustainable food systems, climate resilience, and modernizing agricultural education. We conducted research projects aimed at enhancing existing mechanisms, pathways, and frameworks. We also crafted roadmaps for local industries, ensuring clear plans, alignment, priorities, resources, and continuous improvement within supportive policies. Moreover, SEARCA engaged in targeted outreach to help shape a supportive legal framework for agri-biotech. To enable wider access and boost agricultural productivity, SEARCA supported innovative solutions in aquaculture, crowd farming, and decision support. We also implemented agri-mechanization and agri-robotics education with universities, and developed digital platforms to drive collaborative innovation in agriculture. Meanwhile, SEARCA's 2-pronged approach to climate action consisted of promoting carbon neutrality and implementing projects to strengthen climate resilience. SEARCA invested in the future of ARD by providing scholarships and other academic grants, as well as research and innovation funding. SEARCA also led projects that fostered diversified production systems and encouraged healthier dietary habits. Leveraging the knowledge gleaned from our core programs through publications and knowledge events, fueled by responsible financial management, streamlined operations, and a network of ever-expanding and robust partnerships, SEARCA pushes forward in helping transform Southeast Asia's agriculture toward a better, bigger, and smarter future. In fiscal year 2023-2024, SEARCA intensified its efforts to help agricultural families in Southeast Asia build sustainable and resilient livelihoods. Our core programs are the engines driving this mission. Aligned with the UN SDGs, our efforts target 7 crucial areas to pave the way toward 5 transformative outcomes. We focused on providing scholarships and training to cultivate leaders in agricultural and rural development, or ARD, with combined funding from SEARCA and partner institutions. Furthermore, we facilitated institutional development in higher education, most notably through 2 major capacity-building projects, of which Level Up HEIFR had many tangible outcomes. SEARCA also fostered internationalization of higher education by participating in multi-country networks. SEARCA also leveraged innovative programs to spark youth interest and participation in agriculture. With a focus on research that shapes policy, we delved into critical areas like agricultural management systems, sustainable food systems, climate resilience, and modernizing agricultural education. We conducted research projects aimed at enhancing existing mechanisms, pathways, and frameworks. We also crafted roadmaps for local industries, ensuring clear plans, alignment, priorities, resources, and continuous improvement within supportive policies. Moreover, SEARCA engaged in targeted outreach to help shape a supportive legal framework for agri-biotech. To enable wider access and boost agricultural productivity, SEARCA supported innovative solutions in aquaculture, crowd farming, and decision support. We also implemented agri-mechanization and agri-robotic education at universities, and developed digital platforms to drive collaborative innovation in agriculture. Meanwhile, SEARCA's 2-pronged approach to climate action consisted of promoting carbon neutrality and implementing projects to strengthen climate resilience. SEARCA invested in the future of ARD by providing scholarships and other academic grants, as well as research and innovation funding. SEARCA also led projects that fostered diversified production systems and encouraged healthier dietary habits. Leveraging the knowledge gleaned from our core programs through publications and events, fueled by responsible financial management, streamlined operations, and a network of ever-expanding and robust partnerships, SEARCA pushes forward in helping transform Southeast Asia's agriculture for a better, bigger, and smarter future.
Right before the start, and then
In fiscal year 2023-2024, SEARCA intensified its efforts to help agricultural families in Southeast Asia build sustainable and resilient livelihoods. Our core programs are the engines driving this mission. Aligned with the UN SDGs, our efforts target 7 crucial areas to pave the way toward 5 transformative outcomes. We focused on providing scholarships and training to cultivate leaders in agricultural and rural development, or ARD, with combined funding from SEARCA and partner institutions. Furthermore, we facilitated institutional development in higher education, most notably through 2 major capacity building projects, of which Level Up HEIFR had many tangible outcomes. SEARCA also fostered internationalization of higher education by participating in multi-country networks. SEARCA also leveraged innovative programs to spark youth interest and participation in agriculture. With a focus on research that shapes policy, we delved into critical areas like agricultural management systems, sustainable food systems, climate resilience, and modernizing agricultural education. We conducted research projects aimed at enhancing existing mechanisms, pathways, and frameworks. We also crafted roadmaps for local industries, ensuring clear plans, alignment, priorities, resources, and continuous improvement within supportive policies. Moreover, SEARCA engaged in targeted outreach to help shape a supportive legal framework for agri-biotech. To enable wider access and boost agricultural productivity, SEARCA supported innovative solutions in aquaculture, crowd farming, and decision support. We also implemented agri-mechanization and agri-robotics education with universities, and developed digital platforms to drive collaborative innovation in agriculture. Meanwhile, SEARCA's 2-pronged approach to climate action consisted of promoting carbon neutrality and implementing projects to strengthen climate resilience. SEARCA invested in the future of ARD by providing scholarships and other academic grants, as well as research and innovation funding. SEARCA also led projects that fostered diversified production systems and encouraged healthier dietary habits. Leveraging the knowledge gleaned from our core programs through publications and knowledge events, fueled by responsible financial management, streamlined operations, and a network of ever-expanding and robust partnerships, SEARCA pushes forward in helping transform Southeast Asia's agriculture toward a better, bigger, and smarter future.
Hindi, okay lang.
In fiscal year 2023-2024, SEARCA intensified its efforts to help agricultural families in Southeast Asia build sustainable and resilient livelihoods. Our core programs are the engines driving this mission. Aligned with the UN SDGs, our efforts target 7 crucial areas
Just on time.
to pave the way toward 5 transformative outcomes.
Okay, where are the others?
We focused on providing scholarships and training to cultivate leaders in agricultural and rural development, or ARD, with combined funding from SEARCA and partner institutions. Furthermore, we facilitated institutional development in higher education, most notably through 2 major capacity building projects, of which Level Up HEIFR had many tangible outcomes. SEARCA also fostered internationalization of higher education by participating in multi-country networks. SEARCA also leveraged innovative programs to spark youth interest and participation in agriculture. With a focus on research that shapes policy, we delved into critical areas like agricultural management systems, sustainable food systems, climate resilience, and modernizing agricultural education. We conducted research projects aimed at enhancing existing mechanisms, pathways, and frameworks. We also crafted roadmaps for local
Anybody
industry,
there?
including clear plans, alignment, priorities, resources, and continuous improvement within supportive policies. Moreover, SEARCA engaged in targeted outreach to help shape a supportive legal framework for agri-biotech. To enable wider access and boost agricultural productivity, SEARCA supported innovative solutions in aquaculture, crowd farming,
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We shall start in 2 minutes. Good morning, good morning. Okay, let us all rise for the Simeo colors. Please take your seats. Let us now take a listen to the Simeo song.
It's time to open our eyes to a bright and promising future. Then rise to the call of the times, create a stronger tomorrow. Let's start to make a difference, teaching everyone to learn. Through science, health, and technology, we will share our expertise. And promoting knowledge and policies, we can build a better world. Let us take a stand for our visions of hope, making future plans for the people to grow in a life filled with happiness and glee. Here at Simeo, building the future is our legacy. We achieve our goals through partnership, creating opportunities. By working hand in hand, we can accomplish all our dreams. For a better quality of life is now within our reach. Let us take a stand for our visions of hope, making future plans for the people to grow in a life filled with happiness and glee. Here at Simeo, building the future
Once again, good morning to everyone. Welcome to SEARCA. We're now here at the Umali Auditorium here in Los Baños, Laguna, the Philippines. On behalf of the SEARCA family, thank you very much for joining us on this special occasion. I am Joe Florendo, and I will be your host for today's ceremony up to lunchtime. I will be with you. We are also live streaming this event through the SEARCA online learning and virtual engagement or SOLVE platform via Zoom and Facebook, allowing some of our speakers and guests from around the world to join us. Some of them are tuning in at very late or early hours, braving a 13-hour difference from the Philippines. To those guests, as well as to our in-person attendees, our esteemed guests who have traveled from places as far as Metro Manila, we are incredibly grateful for your support. Today, we gather to celebrate a milestone for the Asian Journal of Agriculture and Development, or AJAD. AJAD is the official journal of the Southeast Asian Regional Center for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture, or SEARCA, sharing valuable insights and analysis on a wide range of topics in agriculture and development. The journal promotes awareness of the latest research findings, state-of-the-art technologies, new methodologies, and policy discussions centered on inclusive and sustainable agricultural and rural development. AJAD is published twice a year and achieved a significant stride in 2023 by being listed the prestigious journal Citation Reports with a journal impact factor of 1.7. For those interested in contributing, AJAD welcomes submissions all year round. Please visit ajad.circa.org for more information. To formally open our event, may I now invite Dr. Glenn B. Gregorio, Center Director of SEARCA, on stage.
Thank you very much, Joe Florendo, and good morning to everyone. Blessed morning, with great pleasure to welcome you all, to welcome everyone in this great and I greet and acknowledge our distinguished guest. Actually, if you see the age at now, it's 20 years. If you look at I was just sitting there and I saw the articles in the volume. It's really very relevant, as tomorrow it might declare the emergency crisis of food security in the Philippines, which all of those articles are relevant to that one. You're talking about world market, rice market, stabilization of our rice prices, food security and nutrition. You're talking about flooding forecasting. So those are very relevant. I think we should send this to the Department of Agriculture. I think you have some solutions might be there. Again, we are honored to have with us, of course, the NEDA Secretary, or the soon-to-be Department of Economic Planning and Development. So Devt, madaling i-pronounce, Devt. So it's almost DepEd. So we have here the academician, I call them the academician Arsenio M. Balisacan. Thank you for coming. And he is also the former SEARCA Center Director, joining us, as well as, of course, we have here Dr. Chilito Habito, the editor of the Asian Journal of Agriculture and Development, AJAD, not Ajax, it's AJAD. And of course, he is also the SEARCA Senior Fellow. Our speakers also includes, of course, Dr. Peter C. Timmer, the Emeritus Professor at Harvard University, who is joining us online. We have a lot of editors here, or we have a lot of authors here. I could see here how Dibui is, I could see Mahar is here. We have Bruce is here. I call them by the first name because I don't need to memorize all those their names. You know them very well. They are all, of course, academician Mahar Lagmay will be coming by 10 o'clock. Yun ang sabi niya, 10:30. Kasi nagpo-forecast pa siya ng flooding ngayon. So Mahar will be joining us. And of course, he's the Executive Director of the University of the Philippines Resilience Institute. Our discussant is here. I mentioned already Dr. Victor Bruce Tolentino. He's also a SEARCA Senior Fellow and former Monetary Board member, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. David Doe will be joining us also online later. And we are equally grateful to the presence of some and many of our former SEARCA Center Director. We have academician Ruben Villarreal here, sir, my professor. Of course, we have Dr. Bernardo, my boss also when I was at Agri. All of them are my bosses. Ilsa Gigit is also here. Thank you for coming. We have also, just to say, the incoming SEARCA Center Director is here with us, Dr. Mercy Sombilia. Thank you for coming. So, reunion ngayon. So, I also want to recognize our partners from UP, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, of course, my boss, the Chancellor, Jose Camacho Jr., the SEARCA Governing Board member, or at the same time, along with him, some Vice Chancellor here. I could see Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Dr. Agham Cuevas is here. I'm looking for Nel, kung nandito si Nel. The rest of the team also, including as well as the deans of the various colleges, I could see it here also. Sino pa ba? To the leaders and representatives from the Los Baños science community and the esteemed authors and editors, editorial board of AJAD, editors of other journals and respected publications, former SEARCA staff, along with the distinguished guest. And I have to mention the former knowledge, we call it Knowledge Resources Unit now. Knowledge Resources Unit heads, you have Mars Tiksay, thank you for coming. We have Bimbo Holiano here, thank you for coming. Of course, the current head of Knowledge Services Unit, Lani Reyes. Saan ba si Lani? Yun, si Lani, busy doon sa likod. So all our SEARCA staff and former SEARCA staff and distinguished guests, welcome everyone. Today marks the momentous occasion. It's the 20th anniversary of Asian Journal of Agriculture and Development. Over the past 2 decades, 20 years na. Actually, sabi ni Shell kanina, it's a little bit more than, because this is our second, or nakapostpone tayo because of the flooding during the time. Bagyo, so we have to adjust it now just before the Valentine's, so it's also appropriate. So AJAD has grown into an incredible and respected platform for advancing scientific knowledge in Asian agriculture and development. It has involved in both scope and depth, embracing new research frontier while staying true to its mission, publishing rigorous, impactful, and relevant scholarship. This continuous evolution embodied in SEARCA's vision to become better, bigger, and smarter. In 2023, as mentioned by Joe, AJAD achieved a major milestone, earning its first impact factor of 1.7 and being indexed in the Journal Citation Report of Graduate Web Science. This is no small feat, but it's the testament of the relentless dedication of our contributors, editors, and supporters, and of course, our staff. None of this would have been possible without the visionaries who built the foundation of AJAD. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We have now the former SEARCA Center Director, past leaders, and our Knowledge Resource Unit, the editorial board, and our network researchers. In this spirit, I'd like to, parang kulang tong aking one. In this spirit, I'd like to extend my special recognition, of course, to academician Arsenio Secretary Arsenio Balisacan for the inaugural editor of AJAD and the former SEARCA Center Director, as well as the many individuals who have guided and supported this journal's journey over the years. As a small yet meaningful contribution as a Center Director, as I joined here, I saw AJAD is very relevant. My contribution to AJAD was only as I co-authored an article with Rico Angcog. I hope Rico is here. Rico, this is our contribution. I co-authored an article with Rico Angcog in 2021 on assessing the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on agricultural production in Southeast Asia towards transformative change in agricultural food system. It's humbling to see that this piece has resonated with the scientific community and now cited by 134 citations, 134 times. So it's a very good citation, an indicator of the relevance in shaping the discussion on post-pandemic agricultural resilience. Beyond content, we also gave AJAD a visual refresh by incorporating the SEARCA tree on its cover. I hope Secretary Blasco, you don't mind. We just to make it colorful, we put the gold SEARCA tree there. That's not the acacia tree, the fertility tree there, but that's the SEARCA tree embedded there. So as to reinforce its identity as a knowledge hub for sustainable agriculture. Moreover, SEARCA is now publishing not just one, but two international scientific journals, AJAD and the Sabrao Journal for Breeding and Genetics, both of which contribute to gain traction, with AJAD achieving an impact factor of 1.6, for Sabrao having an impact factor of 1.6. This underscores SEARCA's growing role in advancing scientific discourse and innovation in agriculture across the region. As we celebrate our achievement, we must also acknowledge the new challenges facing academic publishing. We now live in the era of AI. We have been talking about AI nowadays. It's not only revolutionary research, but it's threatening the integrity of scientific discourse. When I was a little bit young, I always dreamed to have, I just put the keywords and they will generate my article. Or you could generate now what are the conclusion keywords, then it will even generate data for you. So that's how incredible AI could do now. You could publish, if no one is checking it, you could publish every 2 minutes in the journal. So this is very complicated. It's threatening the integrity of scientific discourse. AI can generate pseudo scientific articles, flooding journals with content that appears sophisticated but lacks genuine scientific rigor. So this is a reality we cannot ignore. In the age of AI-generated content, AJAD's mission is more critical than ever. We must safeguard the credibility of agricultural science and development research by upholding the highest standards of academic integrity, peer review, and ethical publishing. SEARCA, through AJAD, is committed to ensuring that the knowledge we generated remains authentic, credible, and impactful, reaching not just academics, but also policymakers, practitioners, and farming communities who rely on science to shape their future. So again, as SEARCA embarks its 12th five-year development plan, we reaffirm our commitment to enhancing the quality of life of our small farmers across Southeast Asia. Advances in agricultural science and technology, coupled with the rigorous knowledge dissemination, will continue to drive SEARCA and its partners, including universities, governments, and development organizations, towards achieving sustainable, inclusive, climate-smart agriculture transformation. Knowledge is not just power, it's a public good. And it is our collective responsibility to ensure that scientific discoveries serve society, especially those in agriculture and rural development. Today, in celebration of knowledge, we celebrate not just AJAD's journey, but also the vibrant community that has made this journal a hub of knowledge. We look forward for many more years of meaningful contribution to agricultural science and beyond. Once again, welcome to SEARCA, and congratulations to AJAD on its 20 remarkable years. God bless AJAD, God bless SEARCA, God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Glenn B. Gregorio, Center Director of SEAMIO SEARCA. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we are truly honored to welcome a special guest, the former SEAMIO SEARCA Director who founded AJAD. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Secretary of the National Economic and Development Authority of the Philippines, Honorable Arsenio M. Balisacan.
Thank you. And it feels so good to be standing here again after almost 15 years. But not counting, of course, the time when I was invited here to speak once to in a conference. Director Glenn enumerated the distinguished guests and colleagues present here earlier, but I would not miss doing the same thing, that because or to show my deep respect and appreciation for all these people. Of course, our Southeast Asian, the SEARCA Director, Glenn Gregorio, the current editor and editor since 2018, I believe, and the former secretary of the office that I now serve, the National Economic and Development Authority. I am so pleased to see here former directors of SEARCA, starting with my successor, Dr. Hilsa Gigit. Then, of course, before him, there's Dr. Ben Villarreal, and also a colleague at the National Academy of Science and Technology as academician, Dr. Fernando Bernardo, and a good friend and colleague, the Chancellor Jose Camacho, and his very able Vice Chancellor Agham Cuevas, former BSP Monetary Board member Bruce Tolentino, and I see here also the DAP, Development Academy of the Philippines President and CEO Mahar, whom I should not miss congratulating for, should I say now? Well, in the next couple of days, she'll be SEARCA's sister director, Innotech director. Congratulations. And of course, I would not miss congratulating also the upcoming SEARCA director, Dr. Mercy Somvilla. we have also here the DFA representative Martin Inocencio, and I'm aware that Professor Peter Timmer is online, so I recognize her also. Distinguished speakers and dear friends, esteemed SEARCA officials and staff, the AJAD editorial board members, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning. I congratulate and thank SEARCA for hosting the 20th anniversary, or is it 21st now? After the postponement of the AJAD, and for graciously inviting me to speak in today's ceremony. I'm glad to see dear friends and colleagues in the agricultural and rural community gathered here to celebrate this milestone. As many of us in this hall share, the agriculture sector holds a special place in our heart and craft. For this is the sector where our passion for development policy as key instrument for improving people's lives began. As we look back and recall the AJAD's beginnings, we note that the journal started as one of the many avenues by which SEARCA advances its reason for being. As a research and training institution, the center recognizes its essential responsibility of generating new knowledge and disseminating research findings as a public good to promote an open yet rigorous and evidence-based discussion and measures to enable agricultural transformation for sustainable economic development. It's good that Hill reminded me earlier on how we came out with the name, Asian Journal of Agriculture and Development. We, at the time, had a contest. We asked our staff and some other colleagues to give us a candidate name for the name of the journal. We did receive a number, but in the end, I provided the title, Asian Journal of Agriculture and Development, because what we wanted, something unique about this journal, is that link that agricultural development is not an end in itself, but a means to achieving sustainable development. And so that focus on agriculture and development, and also in contrast to many other journals, we wanted a journal that's not just so high and technical and tools, but also policy-oriented and management-oriented. So we asked then, with the many journals on these topics published worldwide, why was and is there need for a journal, and how does it stay relevant today? We then thought that poverty has been and remains one of the world's most pressing issues. In developing Asia and the Pacific, a recent ADB publication, it states that around 155 million people, or 3.9% of the region's population, still live in extreme poverty. Despite its slower growth relative to the industry and services sectors, agriculture remains the primary livelihood source among the poor living in rural areas. Thus, we thought then, and still now, think that initiatives and strategies toward alleviating poverty must necessarily and crucially involve improving the conditions of those in the agriculture and rural sectors. Sustainably raising farmers' productivity and incomes leads to accelerated reductions in poverty and food insecurity, with economic growth proving more inclusive when the agricultural and rural sectors experience robust growth. Importantly, rapid agricultural growth, supported by the necessary public infrastructure, regulations, and policies, induces consumption and production multiplier effects throughout the economy, facilitating employment creation in the non-farm sector, which at the macro level contributes to technological diffusion and innovation, and consequently, industrialization and sustainable economic development. "20 years ago, AJAD's very first volume was published with a total of 12 articles, highlighting the following topics. I brought in my copy that I keep to this day, version of that original volume. And these articles include the following: this equilibrium of world agriculture. Even the title resonates today, right? By Yohiro Hayami and Yoshihisa Godo. Intellectual Property Rights by Professor Robert Evanson. Rural Institutions by James Romaset. Water Resources and Irrigation Policy Issues by former Chancellor Willie David. Chinese Agricultural Research System and Reforms by Jikun Huang, Roy Fahu, and Scott Russell. And Food Insecurity in Asia by yours truly. Since then, the topics, as noted by Director Glenn, covered in AJAD's volumes, remains as relevant as ever, especially in today's complex development challenges, including climate change, the global energy transition, and deglobalization, to name a few. The increasing number of extreme weather events that we experience and higher input prices bring food security to the front and center of government's policy agenda. There are increasingly urgent calls for more sustainable agricultural practices in support of objectives involving the availability, accessibility, affordability, and nutritional value of food. In light of the changing trade patterns and linkages brought about by the shifting geopolitical tensions or landscape, policymakers worldwide are recalibrating their strategies as they consider their relative positions in the global economy, even as they seek to achieve higher productivity and strengthen their economy's competitiveness through innovations in agricultural technologies and applications. Since 2004, the AJAD has produced 21 volumes, 43 issues, and 293 articles. A remarkable record. Of this number, 66% of the articles come from Southeast Asia, 23% are from South Asia, and 10% come from East Asia. Including scientific papers, the journal now covers topics such as technology adoption, climate change adaptation, and rural agriculture or urban agriculture. It's worth noting that the 20th anniversary issue contains many themes highly relevant to national and international discourse and responsive to the problems I mentioned a while ago, as well as the problems mentioned by Director Glenn. Of course, I leave it to our dear colleague and AJAD editor, Dr. Shell, to discuss them. No? Thus, please allow me to commend SEARCA for expanding AJAD's scope and welcoming policy-oriented studies that employ the lens of social science and scientific and technical scientific research on agriculture. This openness is evidence of the Center's unwavering commitment to remaining highly relevant to the agricultural and rural community. By responding to the recent developments and sparking and deepening important discussions, SEARCA can be considered successful in impacting the lives of people in the agricultural and rural sectors in the Asia-Pacific region and beyond. I offer my sincerest thanks to everyone who contributed their knowledge to the journal's previous volumes over the years. I commend in particular the AJAD's editor since 2018, Dr. Shalabito, for his excellent stewardship and painstaking dedication to making the journal an invaluable resource for the science and policy of agriculture and development in Asia. And I'm so pleased to note that the journal has been able to get the recognition of various scientific publication reports for citation, and to achieve a high impact factor of 1.7. Congratulations to the team here at SEARCA, led by our editor. So congratulations for, again, SEARCA for 20 years of invaluable and meaningful work through the AJAD. Please stay true to your mission. I wish you continued success in promoting and championing sustainable economic development as we carry the momentum for progress and inclusion in the years to come. And before I close, I have the strong feeling that this journal will prosper with the leadership, under the leadership of, will continue to prosper under the leadership of Mercy Zambilla. After all, she, together with Hill and Arnold Garcia, were with me when we launched this journal. So we'll be watching from the sideline. Thank you very much. Once again, I thank you for the privilege of speaking on these momentous occasions, and I look forward to the discussion ahead of us. Good day to all, and mabuhay tayong lahat.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Arsenio M. Balisacan. Maraming salamat din po. Ladies and gentlemen, this event brings together brilliant minds who are pillars of national, regional, and international development. Our next speaker served as the country's top economist in the 1990s and led the National Economic and Development Authority of the Philippines. We are honored to invite him as AJAD's editor to present the 20th anniversary issue. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Dr. Shelito F. Habito.
Distinguished guests, and that means all of you, ladies and gentlemen, you will forgive me if I don't go through the roll call. I always worry that I will forget one or two people, so I'm playing safe. After all, my previous speakers have already given honor to those, shall we say, worthy of being named. But let me tell the story somehow first of AJAD. Of course, there's no better person to tell the story than the father of AJAD himself, Dr. and Secretary R.C. Balisacan. But the Asian Journal for Agriculture and Development, or AJAD, was born in 2004 when SEARCA, under its 9th director, Dr. R.C. Balisacan, saw the need for a vehicle for wider dissemination of knowledge in agriculture and rural development generated through research, especially from SEARCA itself, which has been a treasure trove of such knowledge generation. There was no better editor to start it off than Dr. Balisacan himself, being a highly respected agricultural economics research authority and academician. And in fact, he continued to shepherd the journal well beyond his tenure as SEARCA director. Thanks to his intellectual leadership and skilled editorial guidance, AJAD gained recognition as a credible and major contributor to the knowledge base in support of agriculture and rural development, well beyond the focus region of SEARCA, but through the rest of Asia and even beyond. Now, this special 20th anniversary issue has the theme, Asian Agriculture and Development in a Dynamic and Volatile Landscape of Demands, Peoples, and Risks. It features articles from, among others, 3 senior members of our editorial board who take both a retrospective and forward-looking view at agriculture in Asia. In fact, I must make special mention that one of them, who was one of the original authors of the first issue, again has graciously agreed to write for this anniversary issue. But I would like to start with Dr. Peter Timmer, who reflects on his wealth of learnings gained throughout his professional career, especially through decades of advising Southeast Asian governments on rice policies. He has taken on a somewhat maverick stance against the seeming conventional wisdom that government has no place in addressing instabilities in the food system. This morning, we will hear him explain how and why governments can play an important role, especially in stabilizing rice prices. Now, the second editorial board member, and again, I've already referred to him, is Dr. James, or Jim Romaset, who looks back to decades of policy prescriptions for the agricultural sector and laments how the agricultural development literature, quote, is replete with false narratives that have led to misleading policy recommendations, unquote. One example is the assertion that large farms are inefficient relative to small ones, which has been in fact used to justify land reform. But he explains a flaw in that very premise and other similar premises that have shaped policy, which have not stood up to closer scrutiny. And his article is very interesting in that regard. That he goes for at least 3 of these kinds of premises that have later proved to be somewhat flawed. Meanwhile, Dr. David Daw, also an editorial board member, and who we'll also hear from in a while, looks back to 6 decades of data to examine the world rice market in relation to the other major cereals of wheat and maize. He infers several significant observations, but I will just mention his conclusion that importing countries' common policy response of liberalizing rice imports subject to import tariffs, something that the Philippines was unfortunately the last country in the world to catch on to, is actually a positive move towards stabilizing rice markets and prices. Drs. Mahar, Dr. R.C. Balisacan, and Dr. Enrico Trinidad examined the puzzle of why economic growth has led to unusually slow poverty reduction in the Philippines. They trace it to misplaced food self-sufficiency policies that kept food prices unduly high, especially for rice, due to misplaced focus on trade protection rather than productivity improvement to keep domestic food production cost competitive. Meanwhile, increasing pressures on agricultural land area alongside urbanizing populations makes urban agriculture a growing trend and imperative, not only in Asia, but in the rest of the globe. And so SEARCA Senior Fellow, Dr. Paul Teng, a long-respected scholar and expert in food systems in the region, points to rapid development of major digital, physical, and biological technologies that increase food production capabilities in urban areas while providing economic opportunities for entrepreneurship. International Food Policy Research Institute veteran, Dr. Howard Buis, howdy, and he's here, and his associates, Dr. Cristina Sison and John Carlo Navasero, examine three related questions surrounding youth in agriculture and point to the interlinkage between malnutrition outcomes and our worrisome education outcomes in the Philippines due to the effect of malnutrition and stunting in the cognitive and learning abilities of children in school. And this is something that Drs. Ravago, Balisacan, and Trinidad also point out in their article. They identify various public health and agriculture interventions that need to form part of development planning in the years ahead. Dr. Evangeline Alocilia presents a customer-oriented technology readiness level, or COTRL, tool that will re-engineer agricultural innovation by systematically assessing new agricultural technologies with customer input. This helps ensure that the design of scientific research keeps the end users in mind from its earliest stages. Finally, flood damage is one of the foremost climate-related threats to agricultural production, especially here in the Philippines, affecting not only livelihoods of farmers, but overall food production, food prices, and ultimately food security. Dr. Alfredo Mahar Lagmay has been at the forefront of developing disaster resiliency tools, including a flood forecasting system that could help reduce flood damage through adequate preparedness and mitigation measures. And he is with us this morning to explain his brainchild. And so altogether, these 8 articles provide an engaging variety of relevant, useful, and even practical knowledge to students, educators, researchers, practitioners, advocates, and policymakers alike. As AJAD looks to its next 20 years and beyond, we aim to cast an even wider net across the continent to gather and share broader and deeper perspectives toward building a stronger knowledge base to propel agriculture and rural development in Asia and beyond for the benefit of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shell. Please, thank you. Please stay there. May I now call on Dr. Glenn B. Gregorio, Honorable Arsenio Balisacan, and Dr. Habito on stage to formally launch the AJAD 20th anniversary issue. That's a gong from the Philippine High School for the Arts. We were told to take care of it. Very special.
Don't worry, one sentence lang. Nakasulat dito before ringing the gong. This is an Asian way of launching. So we will now officially launch the 20th anniversary issue of Asian Journal of Agriculture and Development.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please remain on stage. Thank you very much. That was a nice sound. Here with us on site, we will now call on stage the authors who have contributed to this issue to receive a print copy of the journal. Here with us today is Dr. Mahar Ravago, President, Development Academy of the Philippines, Dr. Balisacan, who is also an author, and Dr. Enrico Trinidad, also of NEDA. They wrote the paper titled Growth, Poverty, and Food Policy in the Philippines, Lessons for the Post-COVID-19 Era. Okay, we want the picture to be perfect. Very nice. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very, very much. Okay, next we have Dr. Howard Buis, Emeritus of the International Food Policy Research Institute, and his co-author, Ms. Maria Cristina B. Sison, of the Philippine Stakeholders for Nutrition and Dietetics. Their paper is titled Youth Engagement in Transforming the Food System to Address Malnutrition in the Philippines. Dr. Howard Buith and Ms. Maria Cristina B. Sison. A round of applause, please. Thank you very much. The next group of authors is led by my friend, Dr. Francisco Mahar Lagmay. He is here with 5 of his co-authors. Hello, good morning, sir. Miss Dina Faye Andal, Miss Diane Charmaine Bencito, Miss Janice Aldea, Mr. Kenneth Liperada, and Mr. Fritz Dariel Andal, all from the University of the Philippines Resilience Institute. They wrote the paper, An Impact-Based Flood Forecasting System for Citizen Empowerment. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Some authors are joining us from overseas via Zoom. Kindly open your video cameras so we can see you on screen. We have Dr. Peter Timmer from Harvard University, USA. He will present his paper later titled How I Learned to Stabilize Rice Prices and Why, a retrospective essay. Is Dr. Timmer? There you go. Good morning.
Thank you.
Sir.
Good morning. Happy to be here and looking forward to the presentation.
Okay, can we bring back Dr. Timmer online, please, so that we can have a photo? There you go. Oh, I'm sorry. There, tama na. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Oh, that's nice. Okay, thank you very much. Let us also welcome Dr. David Dong, formerly of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. He contributed the article New Dynamics in the World Rice Market to AJAD's special issue and will be a discussant at the second part of the program. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
White
Ano,
smile,
yung
sir,
mga
please. Thank you. Us online is Dr. Paul Teng of the Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. His paper is titled Urban Agriculture and Food Security in Development Planning.
Morning.
Good morning. We can see you now, sir.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Join
Yes.
you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. And finally, we have Dr. James Rumaset of the University of Hawaii, USA. His article is titled The Microeconomics of Agricultural Development, Risk, Institutions, and Agricultural Policy. Oh, okay. He's not yet here, but thank you very much, Dr. Rumaset. I will now call on, may I kindly request the Chancellor of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Dr. Jose V. Camacho Jr., to receive a copy of the AJAD 20th anniversary issue. A round of applause, please. There. Are they at the center? Thank you very much. For all the honors. Okay, so I will ask them to. Okay, may I request Dr. Habito, Dr. Balisacan, and Dr. Gregorio to join us here. We will now have a group photo. The photographer will be on stage. May I request everyone to please stand up, wear your biggest smiles. Okay, so this will now be a group photo. It's better than asking you all to go on stage. Okay. Martin, just one group photo. Okay. Sige. Okay. Sige. Okay, can the authors, the former SEARCA directors, the incoming, please join us in the center. Okay. Photographers, I want this to be a perfect picture, huh? No, that's good. This should be perfect. Smile, everyone. Sorry, kaya pa dito si Dr. Bowie? Sir, and Dr. Lagmay, join us. Okay. Okay, there you go. How about giving them a thumbs up? Okay, thank you. Wave. Oh, that's so nice. Very nice. Okay. Photographers, back to work. You have a same-day edit in 20 minutes. Okay. Huh? Wala ba? Okay, sige. Again, we sincerely thank all our authors for positively responding to SEARCA's invite to write for the special anniversary issue of AJAD. We are optimistic that you will publish with AJAD again in the future and engage with us in very meaningful ways. To our audience online, please don't go away. We will start our seminar presentations in a short while. But before we deep dive into the discussions of the paper seminar, let us take a moment to relax and enjoy a cultural interlude. Please help me welcome, like me, the young, talented students from the Philippine High School for the Arts. They will render The title of the performance, boys, come on na, is Till There Was You. Ladies and gentlemen, the Philippine High School for the Arts. Once again, the Philippine High School for the Arts. The title of the song is Till There Was You. Okay, very nice. We are now into the second part of our program, which is still live stream via Solve. This is a kickoff of the seminar series entitled Asian Agriculture and Development in a Dynamic and Volatile Landscape of Demands, Peoples, and Risks, which is also the theme of the AJAD 20th anniversary issue. Two prominent experts from the US and the Philippines will present their papers published in the 20th anniversary issue released last October 31, 2024. There will be two successive discussants after the first presentation, which will be followed by a Q&A for each paper topic. Those who are here in the auditorium may ask questions, and those on Zoom and Facebook Live may also join in the discussions by typing their questions on the chat box. Our first speaker is the Thomas D. Cabot Professor of Development Studies Emeritus at Harvard University. He has served as a professor at Stanford, Cornell, 3 faculties at Harvard and the University of California, San Diego. He was resident advisor with Harvard's Development Advisory Service in Indonesia in the 70s and was awarded the highest merit star by the President of Indonesia for his work on poverty reduction. A core advisor on the World Bank's World Development Report in 2008, Agriculture for Development, he helped stabilize the world rice market in 2008 by pushing for release of surplus Japanese-held American long grain rice. Very impressive. He was awarded the Leontiev Prize in 2012 for advances in the frontiers of economic thought and delivered the 18th annual UNO Wider Lecture at the UN. Our speaker's research and advisory work focuses on 3 main themes: lessons from the historical experience of structural transformation in Europe and Asia for the role of agriculture in currently developing countries, the impact of modern supply chains on smallholder farmers and poor consumers, and approaches to stabilizing rice prices in Asia with minimum spillover to the world market and to producers and consumers in Africa and Latin America. I ran out of breath. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome our speaker, joining us via Zoom, live from Florida, USA, Dr. Charles Peter Thimmer.
Thank you very much. I won't try to thank everybody who's there who has made all of this possible, but I am delighted to be part of this. When Jill invited me to submit an article for the 20th anniversary issue of AJAD, I jumped at the opportunity. I thought this is a time when I can stand back and ask some of the longer run questions that I had not been able to think about seriously without that invitation. A warm welcome from Southwest Florida, which is where I live at the time. I really am very happy to join this launch event for the 20th anniversary special issue of AJAD. I have been involved with the journal almost since its founding by Professor Arsenio Balasacan in 2004. As we just heard, Arce had a vision for an Asian-based journal that would highlight the work of regional scholars and provide a home for research on what he considered to be a critical but poorly understood policy issue facing Asian policymakers: the two-way links between agriculture and development. This was not intended to be another journal on agricultural development, but one that addressed the larger issues of how the two topics were connected. Part of the reason for my long history of engagement with AJAD, of course, is that Arce is very persuasive. He invited me early on to join the advisory board and submit an article. That was the start of my long involvement, mostly screening article submissions to determine which should go out for review. That was an efficient way for me to keep up with the emerging stable of young scholars working on agriculture and development. Over the years, the submissions have improved dramatically. Publishing in AJAD gets you noticed by people who matter. Before AJAD, I had supported 3 other niche journals. In this context, niche means they were interested in my work. My article in the 20th anniversary issue notes the difficulty I had getting published in the mainstream economics journals. My tenure decision at Stanford in late 1974 hinged largely on 4 publications. The Quarterly Journal of Economics article in 1969 on the role of the turnip in the English agricultural revolution. The summary article from my PhD dissertation at Harvard in the Journal of Political Economy in 1971 on using a stochastic frontier production function to measure technical efficiency, and a collection of articles in Food Research Institute Studies and the Bulletin of Indonesian Economic Studies, BIES. Even as a young faculty member, I supported FRI studies because the Food Research Institute at Stanford was my institutional home. Over the 7 years I was on the FRI faculty, I published 9 articles, 1 full issue that contained my PhD dissertation, which I wrote during my first year at Stanford, and edited 2 issues on the political economy of rice in Asia. Similarly, I supported BIES while I was on leave from Stanford, as was noted, to serve as a junior advisor with the Harvard Development Advisory Service to Bappenas, the planning agency in Indonesia. That too was an easy decision. Heinz Arndt made regular visits to the Harvard offices in Jakarta in search of possible articles for the newly established BIES, of which he was the founding and longtime editor. Over the years, I published 14 articles, reviews, and special issues where I served as a co-editor. The third niche journal I supported was Food Policy, which started publication late in 1975. I served on the initial editorial board and published an article in the second issue in February 1976 on fertilizer and food policy in LDCs. All told, I published 8 articles or reviews in the journal, including 3 of my 7 milestone articles discussed in my article for the 20th anniversary of AJAD. My career has obviously depended heavily on the willingness of the editors of these niche journals to publish work that was well outside the mainstream of modern economics, yet still spoke to important issues. It is noteworthy that at the time of my tenure decision in late 1974 and decision to leave Stanford in 1975 for the Babcock Chair in Food Economics in the Division of Nutritional Sciences at Cornell University, none of my published works focused directly on the 3 fields I now describe as my main specialties, as you heard: analysis of the structural transformation, the nature of pro-poor growth and the role of agriculture in fostering it, and stabilizing rice prices. If there is any guidance here to young scholars, it is stay flexible. Over several decades of working with planning agencies and food logistics agencies in a number of large Asian countries, I learned the mechanics of how to stabilize rice prices. For several decades, I was deeply engaged in helping the Indonesian Food Logistics Agency, Bulog, implement its mandate to defend policy set, floor and ceiling prices for rice. Much analytical work and model building went into this effort over many years. The most important lessons were, first, Be realistic about the farm price and consumer price you are asking the food agency to defend, and be sure there is a reasonable margin between the two so that the private sector can carry out most of the logistical tasks. Second, have a logistical and financial capacity for the food agency to buy surpluses in rural areas during the harvest if the price falls to the policy floor, and be sure there is ample warehouse space to store this surplus with trained grain handlers to minimize losses during storage. Third, be sure there are adequate publicly owned and managed buffer stocks in those warehouses as the short season approaches, when rice prices usually reach their peak. Managing public grain reserves turns out to be the critical factor in stabilizing rice prices. Fourth, invest in the analytical capacity to have a reasonably good idea of how large those stocks need to be under bad circumstances, even if everyone hopes for good circumstances. The Public Food Agency must accept the risks that accompany these uncertainties and must receive public finances to remain solvent when the risks turn out badly. It is easy to see why most public efforts to stabilize rice prices in particular, and food prices more broadly, fall on hard times. A successful stabilization program is costly in financial, management, and analytical terms, but it also pays very high economic and political dividends. All of the miracle economies of Asia succeeded to a substantial extent. I have a footnote at this point. In the mid-1980s, I was asked by Bulog to brief a visiting delegation of Nigerian officials, which was charged to learn how Bulog stabilized rice prices effectively. After I explained the mechanics described above, the chairman of the delegation said, "Professor Timmer, in Nigeria, we cannot do any of those things." These historical lessons on how leave the more difficult question: why stabilize rice prices? It is simply not a question asked in most Asian countries, but trade economists uniformly think it is a bad idea. International financial institutions routinely advise countries not to do it and refuse to provide assistance to help. Outside of the successful economies in Asia, there are no examples in the developing world. It is easy to see why the prospect of setting up a food price stabilization program is daunting, and the institutional objections are fierce. But how else is a society to provide what stable food prices have provided historically to farmers and consumers alike? A sense of food security that allows investment decisions to be made with long time horizons in both private and public sector affairs. A sense of food security allows deep investments in human capital, even in poor families. It allows markets to be efficient allocators of scarce resources instead of being scapegoats when sudden food shortages emerge. People riot in the streets and governments fall. I do not know of a good substitute for a country that is early on in the development process. It took me many decades to figure this out because the question never came up during my advisory work in Asia. I only had to answer the question when teaching dubious students, both undergraduates and graduate students, participating in academic workshops and conferences, and publishing articles on my experience with rice marketing and price stabilization. Reflecting on that long experience, I see a number of articles that progressively answered the questions. I picked out 7 in particular for my article that count as milestones. In my thinking and professional writings, they're listed in the appendix to this note, and for reference, my AJAD articles are shown in Appendix 2. The basic starting point for this line of analysis was published in 1989 in Food Policy. It was called Food Price Policy, the Rationale for Government Intervention. The goal of the paper was explained as follows. Neither the underlying analytical foundations nor workable operational procedures have been satisfactorily developed for domestic price stabilization schemes to be designed, implemented, and evaluated with any degree of coherence. The fact that nearly all countries in Asia attempt to implement such schemes suggests that the rewards to progress on both fronts, analytical and operational, will be very substantial. This paper lays out the basic logic of the analytical approaches in order to focus the discussion of operational lessons on pricing strategies that are consistent with the theoretical rationale for their design and implementation. I will skip to the 7th article in my list of milestones, published in 2022 in AJAD. It reviewed in non-technical language the history of thought that I had just presented in the first 6 papers, and then turned to the food crisis that was emerging at the time. ASEAN received praise for the lessons it had learned after the 2007-08 rice crisis. First, build up rice stocks in importing countries so they do not get caught in a rising price spiral. Second, don't panic. Talk through the food security issues at ASEAN summit meetings held twice a year. As evidence that this would work, the food price spike in 2011 included wheat, corn, and soybeans, vegetable oils, but not rice. World rice prices have been relatively stable since, despite considerable fluctuations in the prices of other staple foods on world markets. Dave Dawes' article in this special issue speaks directly to that increased stability for rice. In closing, some general guidelines are in order. Because the desirability of stable rice prices is so widely understood by policymakers throughout Asia, 2 natural questions immediately follow. First, how stable? If a little stability is good, is a lot of stability better? And second, at what price level? How should domestic prices relate to prices on the world market? There is no theoretical or historical answer to either question except it all depends. Much of the skill in policy advising comes from discovering in each unique circumstance on what it depends. Government finances are always critical, but often the capacity of the private sector to buy and manage rice stocks, or the ability and willingness of consumers and farmers to cope with rice price fluctuations will determine the answer. In my experience, some rough guidelines provide a useful starting point for the analysis. First, try to keep domestic rice prices in line with long-run price trends for equivalent qualities of rice in the world market. Determining the relevant long-run trend is mostly a matter of financial resources. For most poor countries, the current price is all that matters. At the other end of the spectrum, Japan has kept its domestic rice price well above the world price for generations. Second, significant importers such as Indonesia or the Philippines might want to maintain a food security premium of perhaps 10% above the world price. A larger premium puts a heavy burden on domestic rice consumers, many of whom are quite poor. Third, significant exporters such as India, Vietnam, and Thailand might want to aim for stable domestic prices about 10% below the trend in world prices. But a larger discount penalizes even efficient rice producers and reduces rice supplies in the world market. Fourth, no matter what, credibility of the stabilization policy is absolutely critical to its success. No government price policy is credible if A, the Treasury cannot afford it, B, it drives the private rice marketing sector out of business, and C, most rice ends up being traded in illicit black markets. Putting specific numbers on these general guidelines requires on-site analysis using the best available data and skilled local policy analysts. Do not believe that someone sitting in Washington or Brussels knows the answer, especially not in Washington. Thank you.
Okay, I think you woke up a lot of people, Dr. Timmer, with that last sentence. But my main takeaway is credibility. To continue with the topic discussed by Dr. Timmer, allow me to introduce our first discussant, a SEARCA senior fellow and former monetary board member of Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. He has over 36 years of progressively senior level experience in international development, governance, development finance, and planning of socio-economic projects in Asia, Africa, and Central America. He has direct experience in the management of international large-scale governance and rural and agricultural development programs. Our discussant also has experience under difficult conditions, including civil war and cross-cultural and religious contexts. He has consistent success in fundraising from private and official bilateral and multilateral donors, international level professional consulting on development issues for various governments and the various CGIAR institutions and UN agencies, the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and the International Fund for Agricultural Development. He has also substantial research and publications and graduate-level teaching experience both in formal and non-formal settings. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Dr. Victor Bruce J. Tolentino.
Thank you. Good morning. And good morning, Peter. And good evening to you, Peter. Let me thank Shell Habito
and Dr. Gregorio for this opportunity to comment on Peter's paper. And I'd like to congratulate R.C. Balisacan. You founded this journal, and it still goes strong, and getting stronger still. Now, Peter's essay, Peter's presentation is deeply personal. And I'd like to take that as license to be personal too. Indeed, Peter's work has influenced my own work throughout my career. And Peter sparked what turned out to be a lifelong interest and work in rice policy and food security. From 1982 to 1986, I was in Hawaii for graduate work, along with RC and Ramon Clarete. And we all worked under our mentor, Jim Romaset, that Peter also mentions in his paper. Now, I finished my PhD in 1986 and came back to UPLB. I already had a teaching appointment, but I never got to teach. Why? Because I arrived here and I was met by Tina David. And Tina said, "You still don't have a teaching load? Your job is to be the liaison person between UPLB and the DA." And at the time, UPLB had just completed the Green Book, which was supposed to be the Bible for recommendations of the UPLB community to the Department of Agriculture. At that time, the group that was putting together the Green Book was the Center for Policy and Development Studies, CPDS, led by Fermin Adriano and Jerry Sison, and coordinating with Tina, who was then at the International Rice Research Institute. One of the very first activities that I did as liaison then between UPLB and the DA was to attend one rainy Saturday afternoon in September 1986, a lecture at the Center for Research and Communication, now called the University of Asia and the Pacific. They had a program led by Rolly D, and Rolly D had invited Peter Timmer to lecture on rice stabilization policy based on Peter's beginning experience in Indonesia. Now, he was just doing his search then for what needs to be done with rice policy. But even at that time in 1986, the presentation by Peter was compelling. And in the audience at that moment was a person who asked all kinds of questions about rice policy. And that turned out to be Sonny Dominguez, the Deputy Minister at that time of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food and incoming Secretary of Agriculture in 1987. Soon after that, in 1989 to 1990, Don Antiporta organized the very first agriculture sector mission to Vietnam. Vietnam had just come out of the war, and FAO and UNDP organized a mission to assist the government of Vietnam on the question what to do with all its surplus rice. So ERI and FAO got together and put together that mission, led by Don Antiporta, and included Randy Barker as the principal leader on a day-to-day basis, Bob Evanson, and Peter Timmer, who, in the process of that advisory mission, advised the government of Vietnam to export rice to the Philippines. And in 1992, then Vietnam made its first export of rice to the Philippines. And we, the Philippines, we have been the #1 customer of Vietnam ever since. So, the reason I think why the Philippines took Peter Timmer's advice to heart is that we did try to implement the price stabilization policies. And prior to 1986, Philippine agricultural policy was marked by government control of trade and even domestic movements of a wide range of commodities, not only rice, but also corn, tobacco, wheat, soybean, onions, garlic, fiber, sugar, coconut, fruits, vegetables, fertilizer, and all meat and fish. As part of the people power reforms in 1986, most of these restrictions were lifted, except for sugar and rice. The National Food Authority was delimited to rice, with a monopoly on trade and control of pricing both on the consumer and farmer price ends, and public stock management, classic following Peter Timmer's advice. At this point, we look back and ask, how did we do in attempting to implement Peter's advice? Clearly, while the Philippines indeed took Peter's message to heart, implementation was quite poor. In fact, the Philippines was one of the key culprits of the 2007-2008 rice price crisis. And as Peter lays out his rough guidelines for price stabilization programs of keeping Philippine domestic prices in general in line with long-run world price trends, and as an importing country, to maintain roughly a 10% price premium above world prices domestically, and ensure the credibility of the stabilization policy. And what's our record? We have been a dismal failure in attempting to do that. Not being able to defend farmer prices and consumer prices at the same time. Our domestic prices for rice are 2 to 3 times that of Vietnam and Thailand. And our price stabilization policy has hardly been credible, largely because of the short-lived, weak implementation due to weak budgetary support and inconsistent governance. I fear that, Peter, you'd be somewhat disappointed in our performance. However, as an unfailing optimist, we should all continue the work. My unending optimism is that it was kind of vindicated with the passage of the rice tariffication law in 2019. While rice was liberalized and tariffied, the buffer stock option, managing public stocks, was kept. The powers of the NFA in setting rice tariffs, setting quotas was dismantled, but the tariffs were maintained. But of course, the rice tariffication law is not perfect. And just in December, it was amended. I take as a positive sign that the amended rice tariffication law has preserved the essence of the RTL. That is, no NFA monopoly and no QRs on trade. However, the support for farm productivity has been tripled. And I suspect that, Peter, you would look positively at the reintroduction of some powers and authorities to the DA and the Bureau of Plant Industry, although I kind of think that the Bureau of Plant Industry part, having powers over traders, is kind of a slippery slope. But still, in an emergency, there is capacity to respond. In fact, out of Peter's work, your work, the ASEAN +3 organized the APTER, the ASEAN +3 Emergency Rice Reserve. While there have been no releases from the APTER, even the threat of releases makes a difference. And in fact, this is what happened in 2007, 2008. As you point out, the psychology of rice price stabilization is much more important than the movement of stocks. And that's a lesson we should all understand. because the rice price stabilization policy is not really about stocks. It is about communication. The powers that the BPI have retained and the NFA have retained present to us an opportunity to again undertake active rice price stabilization measures. And we hope that they've all learned the lessons and guidelines that Peter has carefully compiled for us from his long experience. Let us continue to pay close attention to Peter's advice. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bruce Tolentino. Hold on, I'm at the wrong side of my script. Our next discussant is an independent economist specializing in food policy and analysis and the transformation of the agriculture sector during economic growth, particularly in Asia. He holds a PhD in economics from the Harvard University and has worked with the Harvard Institute for International Development in Indonesia, the International Rice Research Institute in the Philippines, and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in Thailand, with more than 25 years residence in Southeast Asia. He has also published books and research articles in the areas of trade and markets, domestic price policy, production, and natural resources. He was formerly an editor of the journal Global Food Security. All the way from Boston in the US, let us all welcome our next discussant, Dr. David Dong.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this special issue. And thank you for inviting me to join as a discussant as well. I truly feel honored to be a part of all this, along with so many distinguished researchers and policymakers. It's really a great milestone to be celebrating. And thank you, Professor Timmer, for your enjoyable presentation, for your insightful paper in the 20th anniversary issue, and for your many years of guiding me as your student. Ever since I was your graduate student in the early 1990s, I've really learned a lot from you on all three of the topics you highlighted in your presentation. It seems to me that stabilizing rice prices and structural transformation are both important precisely because of their contribution to pro-poor growth, economic growth. And pro-poor economic growth is self-evidently important. Indeed, it's impossible to imagine economic and human development without it. So I kind of see rice price stabilization and structural transformation as inputs, with pro-poor economic growth as the output. Now, the historical evidence for the importance of rice price stabilization is quite strong, as you mentioned. Asia's experienced the most rapid episode of economic growth and poverty alleviation in human history, and all of those countries placed emphasis on rice price stabilization. This doesn't necessarily prove anything, but it is strongly suggestive, I think. Rice price stabilization was something looked upon favorably by governments, as you mentioned, but not by the economics profession. Now, structural transformation seems to me to be kind of the reverse, and that it's looked upon favorably by the profession, but not so favorably by governments, who, at least to me, while extolling its virtues, often seem resistant to promoting structural transformation in actual practice. So to me, that makes your range of work quite interesting, trying to convince the economics profession that governments have something to teach them, but also trying to convince governments that the economics profession has something to teach them. So it's kind of a diplomatic role I feel you've played. Now, I would like to just ask you a broad question and a couple of specific ones related to that. Given all the economic growth and poverty alleviation and structural transformation that has taken place in the region during the course of your career, what is the role of rice in the next 20 to 30 years of Asian economic development? Related to that broad question, the first specific question is, what is your take on the future of rice research, both international and national, in the coming decades? The structural transformation tells us that rice will become a progressively smaller share of the economy, as has happened in Japan and Korea, and indeed in nearly all Asian economies. At the same time, rice will remain the most important source of dietary energy in the region and the most important land use in agriculture. So rice isn't going away anytime soon. Because rice is a self-pollinated plant, the role of the private sector will be less important than it is for corn, which is a cross-pollinated plant. And as OECD governments, especially the United States, retreat from foreign aid, how can we convince Asian governments to place a greater emphasis on publicly funded rice research, which I think is still important going forward? Second, you recommend storage by importers in order to give them trust in the world rice market. How feasible do you think is it for countries like Indonesia and the Philippines to use private sector storage that can be called upon by the government at any time, as is done in Singapore? As you know, Singapore requires private sector rice importers to hold a certain quantity of rice in storage that can be called upon by the government, with compensation, of course, in an emergency. In other words, what are the roles of public and private storage in the storage that you rightly highlighted? Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. Dr. Timmer, did you hear some of Dr. Dong's questions? Let me start with his first question. What is the role of rice in the next 20 to 30 years in the Asia region? I hope I got it correctly, sir. Dr. Timmer?
Thank you. Thank you, David, and thank you, Bruce. Really appreciated the history. There's some of that I'd not remembered as well as you put forward. So that was enjoyable to listen to. And yes, David and I go back a long way. The role of rice strikes me as just in its share of the economy. David points out the link between the structural transformation and stabilizing rice prices, and there's a tension there that Asian governments have been reluctant to cope with. I really like this idea that you got to convince the economic profession that rice price stabilization has really serious benefits to an economy, but at the same time you have to convince governments that the structural transformation is not going away, and if they don't incorporate it into their long run planning, there's going to be huge wasted resources and even stagnation. I think part of the middle income trap in Asia has been because they just haven't been willing to come to grips with the structural transformation. So really important issues here. I think David's point that rice is not going to go away. It's going to remain a very important dietary source, although consumption in Asia is falling, but it's growing quite rapidly in Africa and even in Latin America as well. It's very important for land use and water use. I mean, the two pretty much go together. because upland rice doesn't is just not statistically a very important issue. But I hadn't really thought about this link between price stabilization and structural transformation, and that strikes me as a topic really worth trying to formulate and even think analytically about how these are related and how we would communicate both directions, both with the academics who just basically do not believe price stabilization is a good idea, and with governments that don't want to deal with structural transformation. It seems to me that we have learned some important lessons. Bruce talked quite sharply about what the Philippines learned, but even more broadly, what ASEAN has learned since the 2007-08 price explosion. And it is true, and then Bruce made it clear, the Philippines really, with the combination of India and Vietnam export controls, and the Philippines saying, we will pay any price for rice imports, that it was that environment that just caused the hoarding right across the whole rice chain, from farmers up to traders. Everybody was hoarding rice. I even hoarded some rice because I could see what was coming. It's not irrational to hoard rice when you see a price explosion coming. So the whole question, it goes back to the credibility of a government commitment to maintaining supplies and markets and keeping prices stable. And if you lose that credibility, I would disagree slightly with Bruce. You can't have credibility if you don't have rice in your warehouses. To have the credibility, you have to be able to deliver the stability, but the credibility is really an important thing. Now, I do think something quite fundamental has changed in the world rice market, and David in his paper picks up some of these changes. ASEAN, for better or worse, is the world rice market. Yes, you can buy from Brazil and Uruguay and other places, but if ASEAN can manage through its collective decision-making, if ASEAN can manage to keep world prices stable, then importing countries do not need to stabilize their prices domestically. All they have to do is have a trade policy that is transparent, 10% duty handled by the private sector. That will keep domestic prices as stable as they need to be. And you would not have to have then an active logistics capacity and an open line of credit with the central bank, which is getting dicey everywhere. I think we've seen a paradigm shift since 2008 in how ASEAN behaves. And if that continues, then I'm very optimistic going forward that the world is going to see relatively stable rice prices. I know if Sam Mahanti were here asking questions, he'd remind us that India is a big player. It's not part of ASEAN, but as the largest rice exporter, India has a huge incentive to try to keep its customers happy. And they went out of their way when the monsoon failure, the big drought, the high temperatures in India really forced them, and the election, forced India to put severe restrictions on rice exports. They went out of their way to reassure their regular customers that they could get permission if they had food security problems. The Ministry of Foreign Trade would listen to that. And we got through that pretty well. I mean, I understand, a 30% run up in rice prices is pretty severe for people where it's the staple food stuff, but it didn't go up 200%. And I think ASEAN has a lot of credit coming for having done that. Let me stop there. I really appreciate the comments from both. Those have set me thinking. I have a whole page of notes already on things that we really I want to think about more as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Dong, I hope you don't mind. We'll just forward to Dr. Timmer your other questions. But in the meantime, may I call on a SEARCA scholar for a question? Kindly introduce yourself.
Good morning for everyone. I am Huyền. I am a SEARCA scholar and I come from Vietnam. Now I am taking PhD program on agricultural economics in UPLP. And the first I want to say thank to Dr. Peter Timmer about enjoy presentation and paper. And I have only one question that in Vietnam, the government has many policy to stabilize the rice prices for the farmers. But however, there is still situation where the rice producers cannot sell directly to rice exporters, but still have to go through a middleman like traders. And in this case, the farmer gets lower prices and it limits the farmer ability to earn a meaningful profit from their goods. And my question is, so based on the experience, what solution for us to improve this situation? And thank you so much.
Dr. Timmer, did you understand the question? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I do. I worked very closely with Professor Votong Swan early on. Bruce noted that I had been actively involved with Vietnamese rice policy even before the mission that included Randy Barker. We have to understand the nature of the government in Vietnam if we're going to understand the kind of restrictions that have been put on farmers in terms of being able to export freely without having to go through fairly formal government-approved middlemen. Professor Swan was very upset at not being able to get special privileges for his rice farmers to export directly. The Minister of Agriculture, I'll think of it in a sec, understood this, but really given the, let's just be honest, it's a government run by the Communist Party with a fairly intense desire to maintain effective control over the really important parts of the economy. And breaking out of this fairly rigid structure, how farmers can interact with traders and the world market directly, I think it is not something that we can, certainly not from outside, but I suspect that it's going to take some significant time and evolution for that market system to become more like Thailand, for example. I would not recommend that it become more like India, but if it became more like Thailand, that would become that would make Vietnamese farmers a whole lot happier. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Dr. Timmer, Dr. Tolentino, and Dr. Dang. Thank you. Maraming salamat po. Okay. Our next guest speaker is a renowned Filipino geologist, an academician of the National Academy of Science and Technology and professor at the National Institute of Geological Sciences, University of the Philippines. He is currently the director of the University of the Philippines Nationwide Operational Assessment of Hazard Center, the NOAA Center, and established to conduct research and development and extension services on natural hazards, disaster risk reduction, and climate change. He is also the executive director of the University of the Philippines Resilience Institute, an institution established by the UP system as an agent of change in the country's disaster resilience efforts. He is a recipient of the 2008 Outstanding Research Award from the Department of Science and Technology, the 2013 Professional Regulation Commission Outstanding Professional of the Year Award. It's a full page, please be patient with me. The 2013 Outstanding Filipino Award, the 2015 Plinius Medal of the European Geosciences Union, the 2020 Start Network Changemaker Award, and the Office of Civil Defense 2024 Dangal ng Bantayog Award ng Katatagan Hall of Fame Award for Disaster Resilience Champions. Ladies and gentlemen, after rise, let's not now talk about floods, okay? Let us all welcome Dr. Alfredo Mahar Francisco A. Lagmay.
Hello. Morning. Thank you very much for the introduction. I think I'm the only one who has a PowerPoint presentation in this session. Warren Buffett would be mad. All the rest did not have any PowerPoint. Do you have it? So, yeah, let's have, okay. So the presentation or the talk that I'll be giving is about an impact-based forecasting system, which was developed quite recently under funding from USAID in cooperation with Tufts, but it was actually, it actually started several years earlier when the German Red Cross and the Philippine Red Cross approached us so that they have a system or a tool that they can use to give farmers some kind of insurance money or some kind of payment before the floods happen and destroys their agricultural crops. It did not push through, but eventually, I think about a couple of years ago, Tufts in USAID, and this year there was the World Food Program in USAID again, who made challenge, and the challenge was an innovation challenge, and there were 68 entries from all over the Philippines, and I'm happy to announce that this impact-based forecasting system, which is published in ADJAD, won the first place in that challenge. Okay, so let's start. What is it all about? You can read it. Next slide, please. We all know that the Philippines has been at the top of the list. Filipinos love being at the top. So for three consecutive years, we have ranked #1 in the World Risk Index. We are #1, and Japan is #24, despite the fact that Japan and the Philippines share the same type of hazards. It's practically the same. In fact, they even have more. So why is the Philippines #1? So I think there are a lot of things that we can still do. One of them would be this impact-based forecasting system if we use it. So no matter how much we churn out or we use, if it is not used, if the science is not embraced, the science gets wasted. Okay, so how do we do that? Maybe we can discuss that later on during the discussion part. Next slide, please. The Philippines is #1 because we are in the Pacific Ring of Fire. We have a lot of earthquakes, and we have a lot of hazards associated with volcanism. Next slide, please. And also, we are in the typhoon belt in the West Pacific. And you can see all of the tracks that Luzon and Visayas has had since the 1950s. Mindanao doesn't have that much in comparison to Luzon and the Visayas. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of hazards. And one of them that is related to hydrometeorological hazards is flooding. There are other hazards associated with severe weather or cyclones. These are the floods, these are the rainfall-triggered landslides, storm surges, and strong winds that can be very destructive. So flooding induced by extreme weather events is a significant global natural hazard causing immense economic losses, including agricultural losses. Next slide, please. The rationale is that we lose a lot of money. Basically, that's what this is saying. I just took this from the internet, basically from the World Bank, what they've been saying. And I think there's some from agriculture. Estimates to range from 1.2% to as much as 4.2% of the GDP. I think this is the language of Sir Balisacan, Secretary Balisacan. But anyway, I'm a scientist, I'm a volcanologist, by the way, and I've been delving into several types of disasters since the year 2000, or probably way before that. For about 3 decades, I've been looking at disasters and trying to see what the lessons we can learn from all of these mistakes. The idea is to learn from the mistakes and not to repeat them to avoid the disaster again in the future. Slide, please. So the impact-based forecasting system looks like this. It can be found in the NOAA website. The URL is noaa.up.edu.ph. You can see here a lot of tabs, whether satellite images, rainfall contours, sensors, IoT, a lot of flood maps that were generated since 2012. So it's a long process. There was a lot of hard work that was put here. It was not made over a month or a year. It was made over more than a decade. And we've been trying to improve the data sets, improve the hazard maps, improve the communication on how people can best use the archive of data that we have collected at the University of the Philippines. What you're seeing there is the forecast made by Jerry Bagtasa of Weather Manila. He does it as a hobby, and he has an account called Weather Manila. And I believe his forecasts are the best in the Philippines. He's been doing this for more than 10 years, and every time or each time there's a typhoon, he tries to calibrate it with what had happened in terms of the delivery of rain in any part of the Philippines. Next slide, please. So the impact-based forecasting system is for anticipatory action. It's to prompt communities of imminent flood threat, prioritize communities at risk, estimate flood damage, and allocate resources efficiently for disaster response, including for loss and damage brought about to agriculture. Next slide, please. This is how it looks like. So we have a map like this. And we also mapped all of the building footprints all over the Philippines. And those are the buildings that you are seeing here. And you can see the buildings in relation to the river on a normal day. The flood map that we produced on a nationwide scale would look like this when there's a severe weather event that's incoming. Next slide, please, or that has passed. So they flood the floodplains. Little do the people know who live in those blue areas that, we're in the floodplain. Or maybe they know, but just chose to ignore it. Okay, can you go back so that they can see the normal river course and when it floods? Next slide, please. So this is information that we can use to do a lot of things. To plan to get it embedded into the local land use development plans of communities, disaster management plans, climate change adaptation plans, and so on. And we can apply, we can use this for planning all 1,364 communities, cities of the Philippines, cities and municipalities of the Philippines. And when we plan, when we use these maps, we don't just use it for the sector of agriculture, we use it for all sectors, for tourism, for education, for energy, for all the sectors, for forestry, for coastal concerns, marine environment, and so on. COVID impacted all of those sectors, and floods can do the same. And if we have these maps, we can use this for the planning process of all our communities. Why do we do that? It's because we want the communities to continue their development unhampered by the impacts of disasters. Next slide, please. So I just repeat here what I just said about Weather Manila, Jerry Bagtasa. Here are the examples of the forecasts of rainfall that he's been producing on a daily basis as part of his hobby. So it's just his hobby. So I noticed it, and I noticed that it was quite accurate. This is quite accurate. Not 100% perfect, but quite accurate. So what we thought was to make use of this, merge the data sets that we have in our archive, the flood maps, the landslide maps, as well as the storm surge hazard maps, and make it into something that is useful. And it's called as the impact-based flood forecasting system. Next slide, please. So when you have that rainfall forecast, we overlay it with our flood maps that are detailed. They're high resolution. They were produced using LiDAR maps, which have a 15 centimeter vertical accuracy and 1 by 1 meter pixel resolution, combined with IFSAR data, topographic maps for the entire Philippines, which has an accuracy, vertical accuracy of about 0.4 meters and 5 by 5 meter accuracy. This is very detailed compared to the products that are available worldwide. So we are very lucky to have that. We merge it with the flood hazard maps that are high resolution as well. And then we try to identify automatically what barangays, what the municipalities, cities, and cities would be affected. It comes up as a list on the internet and as a map also in the same website. Next slide, please. So this is just the list, the table. You can click on it whether you want it listed according to barangay or municipality or province, with the total population, affected population exposed to high hazard to medium hazard levels. The data for the population we got from the Philippine Statistics Authority, and we've been working also with Facebook Data for Good to get a better description of the distribution of the population in a certain area. Next slide, please. Those flood maps were generated during the time of Pinoy. No? During the time of Pinoy, this was the launch of Project NOAA. So all of these things that we've been doing have been part of Project NOAA. Later on in 2017, Project NOAA was adopted by the University of the Philippines, and we continue to innovate and improve the products that we have been doing. What's more important is that the skilled workers, the experienced workers, the trained researchers are still there. So we maintain all of that. There's an institutional memory with all of the valuable human resources intact. And that's the reason why we are able to do all of these things. Next slide, please. Weather Manila, we've talked about that. Please go on. Next slide, please. We also do flood modeling validation. We partnered with, next slide please, with some netizens. Actually, not some. There were a lot of netizens been reporting. And we noticed that during Karina, was that Karina? Yeah, Karina, that was last year in June or July. There were a lot of reports that validated the flood maps. And I'm happy to tell you also that the reports were 100% accurate in terms of location. Not the height of the flood, but in terms of location, 100%. But it was still quite high in terms of the flood. And on that day, we had 2.66 million location searches. In 2024, in total, we had 20 million location searches for the website. And that tells us a lot of things, that people are hungry for information, are hungry for data. People are hungry to become empowered with data. We are working with Grab. I've been told by Grab they use our maps. According to the UDP report of 2022, that 60% of local government units use our maps, the NOAA maps. I've been told by banks that they've been using our maps. The insurance industry, locally and internationally, FM Magazine, sorry, FM Global, they use our maps. Realtors, real estate companies use the maps. Na po ang hindi gumagamit. Sir, I would like to schedule a meeting. I'd like to use this. Since you're the editor of Adjan, I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss how probably these maps can be used by the government, the national government. Is it okay, sir? Thank you. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so this is what I've been talking about, 10.4 million for that time, for Christine, Ophel, and Karina. But it was 20 million for 2024. Next slide, please. And we also use social media to promote this. Next slide, please. And we've been partnering with celebrities. No? Celebrities are very important. They have this influence. Don't know what? Like, for example, Atom Aurolio, he's our partner also. He's got a lot of influence. Ano bang meron siya na wala ako? Huwag niyo nang sabihin. Gandang lalaki siya. Ako hindi. Anyway, so Lifesaver crowdsourcing. This one is Ding Dong Dantes. Next slide, please. And we continue to validate all of these things, no, in terms of assessment of the funds as well as the forecasts. It's a continuous learning process. It's continuous research. But so far, we've been getting very, very good results. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. So, way forward is that we used to have more than 2,000 sensors, weather stations, gauges, scattered all over the Philippines. But out of that 2,000, there's probably 5 that is still working out of this set. We used to display that, na ganon, na kikita namin where it's raining and what rate it is raining. Next slide, please. But now, because we've lost that, so ang gagawin na lang namin is we'll make use of available resources, like this one coming from JAXA. We find the rainfall, so that we can use it along with the forecast to get a forecast, impact-based forecasting system that gives lead time warning of a couple of hours, from anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. Next slide, please. And that kind of system, I would like to say, worked and was able to avert about 15 disasters, world-class hazard impacts. And it's a list. So yung nandun sa baba are those disasters that happened. Though in the blue are the disasters that were averted. So you can, there's a lot. You probably didn't hear them because there were no deaths or just one death. No? It's not worthy of news. And it's a lot, very, very long list. And it ended sometime 2017. And then that's the story. That's the figure. Next slide, please. In terms of the number of fatalities that were reduced when that program was introduced, we looked at the International Disaster Database. From 1986, actually it's 1986, this is 2000, up to 2014, there were about roughly 1,000 to 1,200 deaths on average per year. But when the NDRRD applied the PDRA system, what is called as the pre-disaster risk assessment, that entails hazard-specific and time-bound warnings, the number of fatalities were reduced to about 250 deaths on average per year. That's about 1,000 lives saved per year, and it's still ongoing. And the impact-based forecasting system is something similar to the impact-based forecasting system that was used in the PDRA system. It used the same data sets, only that this time around, it's automated. Before, we were doing it manually. Now, it's automated, and it's available on the internet. It's been published in Adjad. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, we want to use AI. We want to use this for anticipatory action, for community resilience, because it has economic benefits. Having significant reduction in losses in damages, including damages to agricultural crops. Next slide, please. It would not have been possible if all of the developers were not present. No? Sa amin naman, ideas lang. We just generate ideas. The real people who did the hard work, the development, the code, the development of the site, I would like to ask them to stand up. Please stand up, guys. Please stand up. Let's give them a big round of applause for what I think they have done in saving a lot of lives since 2014. Maraming salamat, guys. Thank you. Next slide, please. I think that ends my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lagmay. Please stay on stage. Very impressive work. You know, I will look at your information. I'm buying a house in Latin Quezon City. I think it will be very, very useful. My gosh, very, very impressive. We now have a question from a SEARCA scholar. Okay, Mr. Candle. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kando Sitison. I'm from Laos. I'm a SEARCA scholar. Now I'm taking PhD in community development. I have one question. Can this system be used to provide real-time drought and water shortage information so that farmer can take timely action to treat their crops? Thank you, sir.
Can it be used real time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the impact-based forecasting system gives you 1 day in advance warning. That's advanced real time. So we're looking at the accuracy, and so far it's good, based on the severe weather events that happened last year. Now, we're trying to also use, we're trying to create the system which makes use of nowcasting. Nowcasting means that you have real-time sensors or real-time data coming from satellites, and you use that to get people warned in advance, only in the range of 3 hours. That's nowcasting. It takes time for the water to flow down from the mountains to the floodplains, and that delay time we can make use to warn people. But it does. So I think that's what you meant by nowcasting. And I'd like to take the opportunity to apologize na nagkamali pala ako na we have not been working with NEDA. In fact, we have. No? During the PDP 2017 and 2022, there's this provision here called as the NCRMF, no? National Climate Risk Management Framework. And it's also about probabilistic hazard maps, which are the hazard maps that we are using. Yung provisions na yon as challenges na nakita ng NEDA and strategies to use probabilistic risk assessment, which refer to these maps. And the NCRMF, which is in the PDP 2023-2028, nandun din po. So, kailangan lang po ng implementation. So I remember the talk, no? We learn something from government, and the government also learns from the academe. So maybe this time we can put our minds together, discuss it to properly implement the provisions in the PDP 2023-2028, sir.
Thank you very much. I know you have more questions for Dr. Lagmay, but in the interest of time, we have to stop it now. But I think his contact details are on the board. Maraming salamat, Dr. Lagmay. More power to you. Thank you very, very much. Interesting, no? Rise and flood. Okay. May I now on stage the SEARCA Deputy Director for Programs, Dr. Noor Azra Binti Adam, for her closing message. By the way, we would like to hear more news of your meeting with NEDA, Dr. Lagmay. Okay, Dr. Noor.
Thank you very much, Didi, Joe, Florendo. To all our distinguished guests, first of all, may I express my greatest gratitude to all of you to be here in SEARCA. As we come to the end of this meaningful gathering, one thing is clear. This event has been more than just an exchange of ideas. It has been a convergence of minds, a reaffirmation of our shared purpose, and a spark of future action. On behalf of SEARCA, I extend my deepest gratitude again to our esteemed speakers, the pillars of a scientific journal that advances SEARCA's mission to nurture intellectual and scholarly efforts in agricultural and rural development. Your contributions are shaping the landscape of research and policy, not just in Southeast Asia, but across the region. To our distinguished authors, your insights in Asian agriculture developments in a dynamic and volatile landscape on demands, peoples, and risks has given us a richer, deeper understanding of the challenges ahead. Our reactors have added valuable perspectives, and our engaged audience has fueled today's discussion with thoughtful questions. But beyond today's achievement, let us remember that knowledge, when shared, does not diminish, but it multiplies. I hope we have lit a fire in the hearts of the younger generation. I can see here some younger and who feels they're young, okay? All right, our students, junior researchers, and budding scientists who will take the baton and carry forward the mission of ensuring food security in the face of climate change, economic shifts, and evolving global demands. The road ahead is challenging, but also filled with opportunities for those who dare to lead, innovate, and push boundaries. So as we part ways, let us not only celebrate that we have accomplished, but also embrace the call to do more, to be more, and to create lasting impact. Because the future of agriculture and development depends on how boldly we act today. We continue to inspire and be inspired. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noor Azura Binti Adam. This concludes our seminar presentations. Thank you, everyone, on-site and online, for joining us today. I know everyone will agree it's such a nice day, okay? In celebrating the 20th anniversary of SEARCA's AJAD. We look forward to seeing you at future SEARCA events. For our attendees, please share with us your insights from today's webinar. Kindly scan the QR code on the screen and feel free to share your feedback with us, except on the MC. Please rise, join me as we listen to the SEARCA song, accompanied by talented students from the Philippine High School for the Arts, to be joined by a staff member of SEARCA, Aldwin. SEARCA song. Feel free to sing along with the lyrics that will be flashed on the screen as Yes, and members of the SEARCA choir will join them. Oh, this is a nice song. It is. It is. Okay. Ano saan yung high school ba dati? And just to give you a heads up, after this, I will be requesting our distinguished guests to have a picture here on stage. I want this to be captured, okay, and flashed, okay, at the SEARCA premises. After which we will shortly open the booth, then we can have lunch. Okay. Aldo, are you staying there or you want to? Okay. You know, these musicians, they remind me of my youth. Okay, start. Okay.
Come, let's feel the center that we'd like to be. A place where you and me can walk in harmony. Wherever I is proud to serve dignity. Come, let's make these dreams a reality. Fill our hearts and minds with our vision. Side by side we stand for our nation. Lives our values on excellence and work, commitment and unity. Come share this dream for the senior region, extending to the world throughout generations. Fill our hearts with minds with our vision. Side by side we stand for our mission. Live our values on excellence and work, commitment and unity. Let's show the world we can. With God close at hand, we will grow together for the better.
Thank you very much. To those of you who do not know, this is a special one. This is the first time we did it on live. It sounds nice. Congratulations. May I request the people in the first row to please go on stage. We want this to be captured forever. We will have a special photo. Ushers, please help them. Yes, please. Ushers, please help them. Okay. Meron pa ba kayo? Wala na. Pwede kayo muna. Okay, sige po. Ushers, sige po. Sige po. Okay, crew ha? Oo. Always post this in your front door.
Yes, yeah. Okay, I need help with the ano. Okay, nako, very nice, very nice.